All right, we'll call the meeting to order. This is our policy and strategy meeting. We respectfully acknowledge that we live and work in Mi'kmaq as a steward of the ancestral territory of the Mi'kmaq people. We are all treated people. The agenda has been circulated. Can I get somebody to move its approval? Moved by Councillor Bremner, seconded by Councillor Coolin. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. All right. Moving along here. Oh, just a second here. I'm on the wrong thing. Here we go. Topic number 1. Oh, thank you. Approval of minutes.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Warden Weber, seconded by Councillor Asif. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. All right, now topic 1. Sorry about that. I had the wrong sheet up in front of me here for a second. Accessibility plan and accessibility audit presentation by Department of Public Works. Okay, take it away. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. Today we're going to talk all things accessibility. So, second slide. How we got here. So, in November of 22, an RFD was brought to Council, outlining the accessibility audits that was performed on the administration complex here at 151 King Street, and the following motion was in favor. Since this motion, a new public works facility has been purchased with an existing building. An RFD is out for the design and location of the new administration building. It may include the recreation facility on the same site. This is all in discussion. This presentation will address those existing properties for the municipality as well as others and give council the option to choose how or when accessibility upgrades will happen. So what is accessibility? Accessibility is a human right. Creating an accessible province for people with disabilities means more than building ramps and accessible restrooms. It calls for a change in overall attitudes. Where everyone is included in all aspects of our society, people with these diverse perspectives and experience make our province stronger. Every Nova Scotian should have access to communities, workplaces, and services that enable everybody to participate fully in society. In 2017, the Accessibility Act was read into law. It is held underneath the Department of Justice. So this is anything to do with the new standards that are coming, our law, kind of endpoint kind of thing. Next slide. Accessibility is more. Accessibility is not, or a person with disability should not be defined by their disability. Wheeled devices, white canes, hearing aids, cochlear implants are some things that people see with a disability. Next slide. Persons with disabilities are all around us. How many here are part of the aging population of Nova Scotia? Nova Scotia is the oldest province in Canada. How many here are wearing glasses? How many turn the TV up just a little bit more because they're making shows too quiet now? So they keep turning the volume up? How many have environmental sensitivities? How many are diabetic? These are all, and many more, invisible disabilities. Not all disabilities are visible or readily acknowledged by the persons who have them. Next slide. This is a little cartoon. Came to my knowledge when I took my Rick Hansen course. This image is showing a stairs and a ramp, and the person in a wheelchair is asking, could you please remove the snow on the ramp? The person maintaining the property is saying, well, I have all these kids waiting. When I finish shoveling off the stairs, I'll get the ramp for you. And the gentleman says, well, if you finish the ramp, we can all get in. So this is clearing the path. Everybody, everywhere, effortlessly. Some definitions of accessibility. So accessibility, there's a disability, which is a physical, mental, intellectual, learning, or sensory impairment, including an episodic disability that in interaction with a barrier hinders an individual's full and effective participation in society. A barrier is anything that hinders or challenges the full and effective participation in society of persons with disabilities, including a physical barrier, an architectural barrier, an information and communications barrier, and an attitudinal barrier, a technological barrier, a policy, or a practice. Most common barriers experienced by Nova Scotians with disabilities. So I got this information from the province. 59% of Nova Scotians with disabilities, and that's the ones that have acknowledged that they have or reported that they have a disability, are experiencing barriers to accessing the built environment. Systemic barriers. Systemic is the built environment, stigma or attitudinal feeling of belonging, access to healthcare, and access to mental health services. Activity barriers are attending festivals and events, getting around in the winter, using parks, trails, and playgrounds, and using public transportation. The Accessibility Act. So within the Act, there are 6 standards. So currently, only one standard has been read into law, and that is the built environment. It is active as of April 1st last year and will be enforced as of April 1st this year. Coming soon will be the education and employment standards, followed by the goods and services standards, and the public transportation and information communication are currently out for public input. I can't stress how much it's important for everybody here to go and do their survey and give their comments on that so we can actually build these, because there are implications for municipalities within these standards. So, and standards are law, so there's no need for a building permit when it comes to the standards. When the standards come out, if it's stated in these standards, you must do this, you must do it. You're not waiting for a permit to activate it, it's there. We can improve access to the built environment. So through these standards, through the building code, through the built environment accessibility standard, any human rights awards such as the accessible washrooms and public spaces, the Government of Nova Scotia Accessibility Plan, and the prescribed public sector bodies, which are municipalities, their own accessibility plans, which we do have an accessibility plan. But is it undue hardship to make these changes? In Nova Scotia, a public sector body refers to entitled or entities, provincial, municipal, federal, related organizations like schools, universities, hospitals, agencies. Undue hardship refers to the legal limit a lawyer or service provider's duty to accommodate an individual's needs, such as disability, religion, or family status. It occurs when requested accommodations become excessively difficult, expensive, or risky to health and safety, making them unreasonable to implement. So undue hardship usually applies in the employment part of human rights. So if somebody comes here to work and they ask for an accommodation, undue hardship may or may not apply. But is it undue hardship? As an employer, the municipality of the District of Chester would have to prove any accessibility accommodations would create an undue hardship. Key aspects of undue hardship is beyond the reasonable accommodation is at a point where, after exploring options, further accommodation is impossible without severe disruption. Factors to consider are cost, health and safety, operational impact. It is also context dependent. Each case is assessed individually based on the size, resources, and nature of the operation, and burden of proof. The employer or service provider must provide evidence that the accommodation is unreasonable, not just some undue hardship. So the municipality could apply for undue hardship. I just think it'll be extremely hard to win that case. What can be achieved? So, there's two images on your screen. Top one is a cartoon that was in the Chronicle Herald back when Peggy's Cove was going through their accessibility upgrades. It shows people stating that by doing these, you're gonna change the view, you're gonna ruin the view, but they're actually blocking somebody who has a wheeled device from accessing the site. The bottom picture is a up-to-date picture of Peggy's Cove. This is showing the new accessibility ramps. This shows that anything is possible. If you can take a rock and make it accessible, anything is possible. You just have to have the commitment to do it. Peggy's Cove has been designated a gold-rated location by the Rick Hansen Foundation. Other sites that have also received gold rating is the CN Tower and Whistler Blackcomb. So some pretty wild areas that have received gold rating. That's their top standard rating. Some other places locally that have done some accessibility upgrades is Aylesford Lake in Kings County. They've put in a new accessible washroom. It's 4 accessible washrooms and 2 accessible changing rooms. And District of Lunenburg has also updated Miller Point Peace Park with an accessible kayak launch, and they're in the design phase for Sawpit Wharf Park, which is increased parking, travel from the parking lot to the water, as well as updated wharfs for accessibility. So what does an accessible audit provide? An audit provides a comprehensive evaluation of physical environments to identify barriers for persons with disabilities for full and equitable access, prioritizing non-compliance issues with remediation recommendations. We will be looking at the audits from a built environment lens over the next few slides. So the next few slides, I've picked out key areas of the built environment standards and kind of how they apply to us. So the built environment standards, site selection is a key option. So when you're looking at a site selection for the new buildings or any future buildings, new parks, is public transportation. We don't have it currently. It could come in the future. So is it on a route that public transportation may be on? Pedestrian facilities, accessible parking places, safe drop-off zones by the main entrance, and more. Pedestrian facilities, key items to consider are a barrier-free path of travel from their vehicle to the structures, tactile indicators, exterior ramps, curb ramps, exterior stairs. Our stairs out here is one item that I would love to work on. They have no handrails to help anybody rolling up to the door. The door actually has a ramp that could make a chair slide back towards the stairs, and there's no barriers to grab onto before you hit the stairs, and it's actually sloped to the wooden rail. As they reach for the button to activate the door, they could tip sideways. So I'd love to work on that. That's one option of an accessibility upgrade when you're looking at existing buildings on how can we improve for the future. Temporary sidewalks. So as of April 1st, any sidewalk that is taken up by a cafe will now have to have a temporary, we have a bylaw for a temporary sidewalk, but it has to meet certain standards in the new standard. And even in construction, if I'm working on a existing sidewalk, I have to provide a temporary sidewalk that is fully accessible during the construction. Pedestrian control signals, do they meet all the standards? Parking, not associated with buildings, so these would be our parks, parking lots. Must be designated to include a barrier-free path of travel that extends to the entrance of the parking area and meets all the requirements in the standard. On-street parking, we have a few of that, if highways allows, because most of the parking is on provincial streets. When we or a government is developing on-street parking spaces, we must consult with persons with disabilities on the need for location and design of the accessible parking spaces. Next slide, recreation. So in the new facility, if it goes forward, we will need, there's certain standards for lockers. Swimming pools have a standard. Outdoor eating areas applies to any outdoor public eating with more than 5 tables. At least 20% of its tables must be accessible For an outdoor public eating area with 5 or fewer tables, it must have at least 1 accessible table. So that applies to our parks. If a table is already there, it's there. If we buy a new table and put it in, it falls under the standard and it now must meet accessibility standards. Same as benches. Campgrounds, we have a Kaiser Meadow wind turbine campsite. It will fall under the standard. Outdoor play stations are Lordley Park, Croft Road Park, and outdoor water bottle filling stations or community well locations. There is requirements within the standards for these locations as well. And though, again, that the built environment standard applies to new construction, it also applies, like I said, for anything new going in after April 1st. If it's installed before April 1st, can't guarantee I'm getting anything in by April 1st. And an example, a new bench that is located next to a barrier-free path of travel must be located on a firm, stable ground surface, be located next to a clear floor surface that is at least 820 millimeters by 1390 millimeters. It's not part of a barrier path of travel, so it has to be off the path, be on a stable surface so it doesn't sink, tilt. Back one slide, sorry, there we go. Continuing with the standards, emergency equipment location and placement of defibrillators. There's just certain requirements on where they are, levels they are, how accessible they are. When it comes to planning, there's planning requirements, snow and ice control plans, maintenance of parking area plans, accessible entrance plans, fire emergency evacuation plans. The first one there is actually a provincial plan, the accessible outdoor spaces plan. That's the province is creating that plan. Other than the standards that we have for Nova Scotia, there's other standards to consider. There's the Rick Hansen Foundation Accessibility Standard, and there's also CSA B651. The current one is 23, which is the accessible design for the built environment. So these two standards are over and above. What we have for the building code and their standards are our minimums that we have to make. To exceed that minimum, I would look at the other two standards and do best practice. Next slide. So we had an accessibility audit completed on the annex building and the admin building here in 2022. One of the questions is, do we add this review for priority upgrades for the remainder of the time that we may be in these buildings to future audits? Do we provide that audits to them for review and they can pick out, okay, key items of this whole audit, I would work on these first? Or do you just want to have staff to review those and come up with some ideas for upgrades to these buildings? Next slide, that slide. So we have an internal accessibility committee. It's made up of myself, Fred Wynot, Chad Hahn, Tim Topping, Jonathan Meakin, and Aaron Lowe. And we came up with the following possible public spaces for audits in the future. And kind of broke it down to what's public access and what is public/employment based upgrades that could be completed. The timber wharfs, the tender wharfs, boat launches, some parks. There's a access ramp for Miners Beach. We have 50 kilometers of trails. We would focus on the trail heads for those trails. As mentioned, the campsite out at Kaiser Meadows, those are all public access sites. Public or employment access would be the Public Works facility. It needs like some ramps, some parking lot access, some handles, washroom upgrades, such. The New Ross Family Resource Center is on this list. Kaiser Meadows, the office, the scale house, and the drop-off areas for the public. Wastewater treatment plants. We don't normally have public there, but we do have consultants and we do have regulatory bodies that come, and so they may require accessibility needs. So we should look at those as well for access. Based on the costs that we received in 2022, the audits, we're estimating cost between 15 and 20,000 per audit. So buildings will require closer to the 20,000, where a park will be 15 or less, because there's less to them. For each, yeah. But if they're bulk outs, we're doing 5, they'll probably do a generalized, because they're all at the same time. And these audits, when we do them, will form our capital budgets for the next 5 years. So we're not asking to do these all in 1 year. We're looking, okay, let's pick some items and plan over the next 5 years to start doing some upgrades. So the next slide is all those listed again. We're looking at this list and we're asking you to say, have you heard from any of your constituents? Is there any areas not on this list that you've heard concerns of that are public spaces? And is there any prioritizing that you would like to do out of this list to say, could you please put these at the front of the list? These could be the next, and we'll bring back an RFD with that, looking at going out for quotes for audits. Any questions?
Yeah. Yeah, I do.
By all means.
Okay. Well, I got a bunch of them. On the temporary sidewalks piece, like, so, well, let's say in Chester Basin, you're fixing the pieces. Where are you gonna put the temporary sidewalk?
We would have to build it out, usually the bike lane area, the paved shoulder area is what we would build a safe area for them to go around the construction.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, and then another one, and you're just talking about the audits, and I'll move, like, say, to the timber wharves in Chester Basin. It costs $15,000 to go do an evaluation of it. Wouldn't you be better off to just go spend the $15,000 making it more accessible?
This audit will tell you how to do that, so it'll point out the area, or even if it can be. It may not be, like, there's no way you could get a proper slope down to it, so it'll evaluate that, or we would have to build, maybe they say, don't do this, but to the side of it, build this wharf.
Well, I know, but a lot of stuff, if you just take a look at it, you can tell, okay, well, if I did this, it would be better, or whatever. I don't know, it just, that's it for me for now. Just a lot of money evaluating what a lot of people, I would think, if you just looked at it, you could tell that if you improve this, things would be better.
Yeah. Some of these.
Does it meet the standard? I don't know.
Yeah, some of these I could feel comfort going out and doing with my training that I have, but some of them, the wharves, I would ask for somebody else to look at those, because I honestly don't know a lot about wharves and how I could modify those. And that's what this list is for, so maybe the wharves are down further, we're not gonna do those first. We'll do the parks and the trails first, or this is what we're asking council to provide us. How do you want us to tackle this list?
Chester Basin Wharf, I heard nobody say anything, it's just a flat wharf, you just walk out on it. I don't get it, but whatever.
Okay, Councillor Connors.
Thank you. So in terms of your question and the slide that we're on in terms of discussion, I as well have not necessarily heard from anyone in particular around properties and facilities. So just, again, speaking kind of high level, my thoughts around the 2 columns of public access and public or employment access. Again, just me speaking out loud, and we will hear from others. In terms of a starting point, just what you had just said there, actually, Tammy, in terms of parks and the trails as they've been identified here. So I have no suggestions necessarily around the parks, which ones, we should start with and which ones we should finish with, but just parks in general, and as well as the trailheads in terms of the Chester Connection Trail that we do have. Under the public or employment access, I zero in on the Public Works facility as well as Kaiser Meadow. Again, just again, me talking out loud here, I guess. I think that, and on this list, of course, we don't see our current facility, like this facility, right?
No, I missed that.
That's okay.
Oh,
No.
no, it is former audit review. So do we bring that
Oh,
audit
okay.
forward for a new person
Sorry.
to review that audit and pick and choose out of that audit to give us a prioritized area?
Sorry, because I guess I just didn't read into that one, and I probably should have. That former audit review is this current facility that we're sitting in now. And I know that we talked about it prior to the last election in terms of even really seriously, the job that we have in terms of being honest about attracting and opening the envelope for candidates to run for my position, right? I won't talk about anyone else, but the positions of public office, it's quite atrocious that, the washroom facility is downstairs. And how do we get downstairs if we are, using mobility assist? If we are visually impaired, all of those, all of them, there's a whole scale of them. So I'm just gonna put that out there. So, we have a responsibility to do some things.
Oops. Councillor Coolin?
Thank you, Tammy. From the starting and ending point, is there a time frame that these all have to be done, like for regulations from, like the standards? So you're asking us at this point, basically to prioritize and pick what needs to be. So wouldn't that also be partnered with your recommendations of what needs to be done? I mean, we understand this building, is not up to standard. We're also in the balance of, we're gonna build a new building, how much we're gonna invest in this current building and stuff,
Yeah.
but we still have to comply with the standards that's in front of us.
You have to comply with the standards when they are activated.
Right.
So basically, our considerations for direction, these are all existing. Unless we do a building permit, nothing's going to tell you to do anything. This is making our public spaces better for our current persons living here, anybody coming to visit, accessible tourism.
Yeah.
Like, we have lots of places for tourism that may not be accessible, and we're losing that tourism money and bring them in. Like, there's lots of water access, and there's lots of accessible tourism due to sailing and kayaking and all that right now, I don't think they can act as any of our locations, so.
So Warden Weber and Councillor Connor also said that in the constituents, they have not heard too much of, but maybe we as council need to go to our constituents and say, is there earmark spots? Is there locations that you or your family or would need to improve accessibility, right? And then we could come back with those prioritized list.
Yes.
Thank you.
Councillor Bremner?
Thank you, Deputy Warden Vino. I have heard from some constituents, and the three areas they've talked about, this may also work into Public Works. They're concerned of sidewalks where pieces are broken out of the sidewalks, and wheelchairs have, particularly down on Queen and Duke and those places, in front of the Forecastle Tavern and on the other side of the road, there are chunks out of the walkways that have created dangers for walkers and challenged individuals. Frida's Beach has come to me many times because it's one of the only beach locations in the district here. Guardrails have kind of disintegrated off. They're concerned with people going along the edge of the road. They may be forced off and not have a protection. The walkways or rampways down, I know I was down and looked at them, always needing some address. And Lorley Park, that is a very, very popular park in District 3 and for the municipality. And I think we always need to look at that and see. I've gone to Public Works and mentioned about some of the rampways off of Central Street, and they've been improved and repaired. So it is for accessibility needs, a monitoring thing that I hear quite often. People alert me, and then I go appropriately to the agency or internal location to address it. So I think we have to look at this. I, like Warden Weber, am concerned that every audit is $20,000. Seems like quite a bit of money when you start looking at all the facilities we have to deal with. So I'm challenged on that. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I have a few comments. Counselor Coolin asked the question, when do they have to be done? And the answer is, they don't. We would only undertake this work, to my knowledge, should we wish to do it. All built infrastructure or existing infrastructure can remain as is. It's only when you have a change in use, or if you're going to do new construction or an upgrade, capital upgrade, that accessibility as it's legally defined would be required to be undertaken. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think I'm right.
You are, unless it's a
Okay.
building
Thank you.
permit, it doesn't require it.
So,
No.
codes march on. Okay, so I live in a bungalow that was built in 1979. And in its day, it probably met whatever the energy code was of the day for insulated value. Nobody could argue that I'm wasting energy that I wouldn't be wasting if I built a brand new house. But when the energy code continued to climb and become more rigorous as it is today, and will go up another level April 1st in this province, I'm not required to then go back and add layers of insulation to my house to comply with the code. Now, we can take some sort of moral ground and say, it's a human right and blah, 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 but there are practical limitations on what we can undertake. Do we want to make Castle Rock an accessible trail so that people can wheel to the top? Well, that would then make Castle Rock, it would defeat its purpose to be, potentially, the hiking trail that has some, levels of difficulty. So I think we have to, if we're going to examine these projects potentially on its merits of what it is that we want to take voluntarily, I think that just hitting all these random assets with accessibility upgrades, I think that is a very poor approach. And we have to really, I for one have not in my tenure since 2012 had one person come to me and say that we should be making a certain asset that we have accessible. So how many hundreds of thousands of dollars, I guess, does this council want to invest in addressing a problem that at this point I haven't actually heard is a priority of the people? And it's not a legal requirement of the province as this code change comes in. Now, I understand that, if we have a public building where we could have a mix of people with different abilities, maybe we want to look at some of the easier projects. We already have an accessibility assessment of, I think, this building. I think that's right.
Correct. Yeah.
So we may be able to come and look at those projects and try to prioritize ones that we think would have the most impact for the least amount of money. That's a value. But then going out one by one and looking at wharves and all these different things, I, for one, am not in favor of it, frankly. And I have no interest in it unless the people that I represent come to me and say they do. And so far, they haven't. So that's my comments. Maybe it'll spur on some more conversation. Councillor Asif.
Thank you. I just, to Andre's point, and I was gonna ask, there are places like town of Mahone Bay that their town hall is, I don't know what they're gonna do there.
Excavator.
It's, and I guess my biggest question is, are we gonna invest here? What if we build a new building? I mean, is there, and I was of the assumption that it was a legal requirement. I'm shocked to hear that it's not. I just thought it was something that was,
Hard and fast.
yeah, from the province.
For the new building, it will be.
Well, that's what I'm saying, for the new building. But I mean, it would be prudent if you're gonna build a new building to do it that way.
What would be required?
It would be, yeah, it would be required, I can
required,
understand
yes.
that. So I guess what I'm saying is, are we gonna invest a lot of money in this building and it not and it's not gonna be used in 5 years. And to me, as Deputy Warden Vino said, the value, you know, I mean, we all wanna do the right thing, obviously, but you gotta look at dollars and cents, and I mean, if I was in the town of Mahone Bay, I'd be shaking my head like, how are we gonna do this? Cause that's a big project, and I'm sure they can use undue, you know, they can plead. But that's what I don't understand, so you gotta prove that you can't do it, but who do you have to prove that to if it's not a legal requirement? That doesn't make a lot of
That's
sense
not
to me.
true.
Like if the town of Mahone Bay comes and says, you know, you have these rules, we can't do it because of it's undue hardship cost. So who makes that decision, I wonder?
The Justice Department.
The Justice Department. So, but it's not a requirement, so how, that doesn't make sense to me.
So it's not a requirement to change anything until it meets code requirements, until you've created a building code, you now must meet that. You're talking about undue hardship, which is a complaint based on employment. That is a human rights complaint.
Okay.
Then it goes to the justice for those items. I can't speak on Mahone Bay.
No.
I can speak on the fact that we've narrowed down key areas that the public are going to or would apply as you're hiring somebody in the future that would be employed at one of our facilities. If somebody who has a disability sees that you don't have these options, they may not apply. Or they could treat it as you didn't select me because. That would have to be proven. But that's the images that we hear. Aaron would like to key on that.
I just think that, because it really changed my
Wait your turn.
thought process that if, I thought it was a requirement of the province. That was my belief. But now I understand it differently. It's really changed my way of thinking a lot. Yeah,
The standards are the requirement.
yeah.
What we're asking is to go over and above the standards. We're not asking you to wait until the standards are triggered. We're asking you to look at a few items, not this whole list all at once. Give me 2 or 3 items to hit per year, and then we'll improve that for the public.
Okay. Our deputy CAO, what, no, you don't too? You're done? All right, well, that's fine then. Counselor Connors.
Thank you. So earlier today, I had no problem supporting the paved shoulders request. And I'm trying to remember what that amount was. Was it 800,000? 750 now, right? So, you know, give or take, what, 10% or something? I don't know. I had no problem supporting that. It's important. I think that it's important to do the audits. So, you know, we're kind of a little surprised maybe at 15 to 20,000 per audit, but
That's a
again-
guesstimate, too.
Again, it's a guess, just like the 750, which is important, is not a guess, I get it. I'm sure we're gonna land right on 750, it's not gonna go up, I'm sure. So it's important, I think, the audits don't scare me, it's an important piece of that. Again, sitting here and supporting that 750 plus for the paved shoulders. I'd like the idea of starting with a few and giving you that idea, giving the committee the idea of, you know, building out for the next 5 years. So really, again, not necessarily, I guess, focusing maybe on this building, but the parks and the trails, if you will. And I guess we have the column for the public, I'm sorry. So, yeah. Also, too, I was just curious, and it gives me opportunity to bring this, just to mention it, and no one needs to answer, but I'm just curious what counselors have taken advantage of the equity training opportunity that Jennifer sent out to all of us in January. It wasn't a requirement for us to do that. In the email, it indicated that 2 of us, and I'm one, 2 of us did sign up for that. I don't know if any others have, but it's certainly, I'm early days. I'm probably on, you know, chapter 3 or module 3, whatever it might be, 3 or 4. So I actually have to do some more on that. But I'm just wondering, so I'm just going to leave that out there. That's a question that doesn't have to be answered, but I think that when we know better, we do better. That's all.
Counselor Church.
I'll weigh in. I think we're morally obligated to make a more accessible community for everyone when we have an opportunity. I don't know that we should invest so much money quite yet in this building. We're not sure whether it's going to be a new building or a refit here. I don't know if we actually made that decision yet, unless I'm behind. So, maybe wait on this building, but certainly on our outdoor spaces. I do know we have a community that access places like Lordley Park very regularly. Frida's Beach very regularly. Some of them, like, even go to Meisner's Beach. It's tough. Sometimes we have to say, you can't come because you're in a wheelchair. So maybe looking at some of those places may be appropriate. We have more and more individuals who are actually using wheelchairs in this area, and they would find it difficult. I don't know about even getting into this building, how difficult that would be, but I think we have to look at that. More and more people are not, and I'm not just talking the Bonnie Lee community, there are many people that are now more using wheelchairs or other aids that it needs to be more accessible. So I think we're sort of obligated to look at some things.
Warden Weber.
Yeah, it's not that I don't want to make things more accessible, but it's just that I don't want to, I think there's some things that are so obvious that, of course, we could fix them, and they're not terribly expensive to fix, so let's go do it. Like you're talking about putting a ramp here, so when people come up, well, that's, you don't need an audit to do that, you just go do it. And you could do it for the amount of money that the audit's gonna cost you,
Yeah.
And the same as Frida's Beach. I mean, we know that it's the only real beach I think we have, So if we can make it more accessible, perhaps not to everybody, but at least improve the accessibility to the beach, let's go do it. And, I can see where maybe some of our boat launches, I mean, I haven't really gone and looked, and no, I haven't heard from people, but I mean, people don't call me about everything. But, if we know that putting a little handrail down to get to the shoreline at some of those would, or something like that would improve accessibility for other people, then I'm all in favor of going to do it, but I don't see where I want to spend $15,000-$20,000 doing an audit and having it tell me that I should do this, that, and everything else when, improving it where you can at a reasonable price so to give more people better access and safety when they get there, yes, I'm all for that. And this building is obviously one that, I'm not in favor of, like everybody else says, of spending an enormous amount of money until I know whether we're staying here or not. But if there are certain things like making access through the ramps and steers and stuff like that easier, yes, of course we should go do it. But I guess that's all I have to say.
So we could look at this, I can bring back an RFD of certain areas just to get costs on what an audit would be, and then I would come back to see if you would like to go further with those audits for those areas.
No, I don't want to do that.
I don't know why we can't just get a price on putting the railings and stuff.
Identify some projects.
Yeah.
For this building,
Some
yes.
projects, yeah.
I have got a list of smaller items, less than $200,000 to improve the accessibility here.
Well, yes, and if we can do that, then that makes more sense to me,
Yeah.
And the same as like the beach area or some of those little things like, yeah, okay, when you walk into some of these places, you can see where, okay, well, if you didn't have a handrail or if it's all rock, you couldn't get across that spot, it's not wide enough for the wheelchair, then yeah, okay, then let's go try to improve that.
Okay, you're done? Yeah, okay. Councillor Brebner,
Thank you, Deputy Warden Vito. We all know that safety is a major concern and we have to address it to a level. We can break the bank if we want to, and I don't think that's what any of us want. I, as well as I appreciate what Councillor Connor said, I have spent time learning and becoming more educated on accessibility and challenges as we all age and things happen to us, it is shocking to see what we take for granted as healthier people and for people that have challenges have to deal with. It is just unbelievable. Like Warden Weber, I think it's very rational to look at things local-wise, major priority-wise, and financially responsible in those areas without, we can, as I said, we can spend millions on this and still be challenged every year to add more to it and add more to it and add more to it. So I'd be cautious but supportive of that we need to move forward with some major issues that we're aware of. Thank you.
Oh, well, I'll jump in then again. You know, I sort of reject this idea of this moral obligation. You know, I'm sorry. Counsel me, I guess. But, you know, if we're gonna make, if we have in our capital plan when we're gonna be making upgrades to a park, let's say the Hahn Estate, you know, we have a proposal to maybe build a structure there and some other things. It's a prime opportunity to assess that site for accessibility. We're making an improvement, and under the law, we're gonna be investing in capital, and that's the time where we should be automatically checking it for accessibility requirements and ensuring that we satisfy those. You know, Recreation Department here has never, ever, ever had any problem bringing suggestions for improvement, be it washroom facilities or trails or whatever. And should they identify a site in our outside areas, our trail systems, parks, whatever, that they feel is an opportunity, I don't feel like we, as Warden Weber said, I don't feel like we need to hire a consultant to do that. I think our staff are acutely aware of the low-hanging fruit, I'll call it, for making improvements. So, you know, if they see a beach that, you know, we can put a Moby mat or whatever and people can get down there and that's an obvious thing, then bring it forward and put it forward in the budget and we'll assess that. What I don't want is, because this is what the purpose of this meeting is to establish some sort of policy or some sort of practice, I guess is better, not a policy, but a practice going forward of how we're gonna do this. And what I don't want is staff to receive the idea, I think, this is my opinion, that we should be going through and assessing all of our sites and doing these audits, these costly audits on sites that we really don't plan realistically to spend a lot of money in the field of accessibility until we're at a point where we're gonna be making a capital improvement. You know, at that point, it's then obvious that we're gonna wanna do it, and under the law, we have to anyway. But I think that our staff will hopefully continue to make suggestions to us for sites, even like this building that we're in, where they identify very, and rightly so, that there are areas where we can, you know, add this feature, add this, and it'll improve accessibility, great. Then we are actually going above and beyond our requirement. We could leave it as is until we're challenged or so, I guess. We always face that concern, but, you know, we have existing infrastructure, and if we want to continue to make improvements at staff suggestion, I think that's okay. That's a reasonable practice, especially for this building where we don't even know how long we're going to be inhabiting it. But in terms of our outside areas, wharves and slips and parks and trails and stuff like that, I think that, you know, we're always making improvements, and those are the opportune times to make suggestions for accessibility, in my view.
Can I just jump in?
By all means.
Thank you. So I think what I'm hearing for staff direction coming out of this discussion is that we go back, we look at our capital budget items that you'll be reviewing in a few weeks. We identify those areas and those projects where it makes sense to do an audit potentially, because we're already proposing some work in those areas. And then we can come together again as a staff group and look at the areas where there seems to be either identified problems and issues, or again, those low-hanging fruit opportunities as opposed to going out and doing proactive audits and stuff like that for now. And then those audits are built into our projects as they come forward, our capital projects as they come forward. Does that make sense? Okay.
Councillor Asif.
Yeah, thank you. And I was looking at these estimates from 2022. If you go through the list here, and these are suggestions that should be done, I think, Tammy, isn't it, for the annex building, like resurface this parking lot to be level with and firm so all users can navigate. This talks about lighting, repainting the parking lot. And then it goes, the reference cost is $123,000. If you keep going through there, it's a lot of money.
Yes.
And I mean, I don't know, like, Ellen was included with this, right? Did she
Yes.
have some of the suggestions here, I assume, or most
So,
of them?
There was an accessibility professional that created that audit.
Okay,
It was 1.8 million at the time.
Yeah.
As a Class D audit.
that's right.
Ellen and I have discussed that audit, and we didn't shortlist all of that. We shortlisted a smaller items to get it, the accessibility, which is your entryways, your parking lots, your washrooms, door handles to make them more accessible, because if somebody loses their dexterity, swapping out a door handle is pretty cheap to make it more accessible. Understanding at the time that we were thinking of moving, we didn't really support doing all of everything in that item, but we could shortlist the
Sure.
key items that are there and come back with a budget on to get us through, and then if 5 years we are staying, we'll look at that then.
Yep,
Separate discussion, but other items, like staff could go through these very easily and shortlist these items for council. And between myself and Ellen, we could do an accessory audit on them prior to them coming to council.
well, could you, obviously, Ellen's our coordinator, so if, between you and Ellen, like, you identified the handrail.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know Ellen probably doesn't want to prioritize, but maybe she does. She could identify things that are really important. I mean, not that everything's not really important, but what can we do at our level that you have identified? And with her input, I would think that would be important. She's the coordinator.
She's the regional coordinator,
Yeah.
and we could take stuff for her to review.
Yeah,
With my rec Hansen designation, I can do an audit on an item and to come back, say, yes, this meets it, we can let this one slide for a bit, or
Yeah.
this one really is high priority to do some upgrades to, yes.
thank you.
It's just more staff time.
Okey-dokey.
Okay. Well, is that rounding it out then?
Yep.
All right, fine.
Thank you.
Okey doke. Economic Development Strategy presentation, who's handling that? You? Oh.
Brian.
Oh my gosh. Look at that.
No, those are good. Those are just for me. These are so if I'm asked any questions, I actually have the answers, so it's good. Ready?
By all means.
All right. Thank you, Council. So this morning, what I'm going to be doing is walking you through a high-level presentation of our economic development strategy, which we are anticipating bringing back for Council approval and adoption, I believe, sometime in the very near future, assuming that if we get the direction to do so today. But in addition to that, what I am hoping, as well as fun for everybody, is you get to see our new brand in action as well, because we put this presentation together with our new brand elements as well, so everybody could see what they look like in practice as well.
Hot dog.
What's that?
Hot dog.
Yeah, I know, it's very exciting. So basically what the economic development strategy is it's a foundation for the work that we're doing in our economic development team. So my hope is that there's no huge surprises in this plan, because essentially what we're trying to do is there's been a lot of plans that have been adopted over the last number of years, growth plan, arts and culture strategy, things like that, but they're in different places. So what we're trying to do is collect everything into a single document that everybody can have easy access to, that kind of goes through our priorities when we're considering economic development in the municipality. So that's our hope, to include all those things as well as the day-to-day activities that we do that everybody probably knows but maybe doesn't really think about that frequently, into a single location, so we can have that information for everybody as to what we are doing to promote economic development in the municipality and what we're trying to accomplish.
Is that photo from Blandford?
That photo is from the 329, yes. Yeah.
No bike lane.
Yeah. Okay. So just if you could go to the next slide, if you don't mind. So from a very high level in general, the quick review of what we're trying to do here is to align the economic development strategy with the strategic priorities that council has already set. So in our 2024 and to 2028 strategic plan, we have a full section in there where we dedicate it to strategic growth and development. And so the foundation of this plan are the three elements that have been identified in that strategy, in the strategic plan, which are: number one, to plan and support targeted growth areas; number two, to be open for business; and number three, to position the municipality as a destination of choice. So those are the three high-level objectives that council has included in their strategic plan that we're trying to align this strategy with. So next slide. So the key question, and I know this has come up in past conversations around this table, is why now? So the main thing, I won't go through each of these individually, but the key thing here is we do have an existing economic development strategy, but it was from 2013. So we're going to go into that a little bit more. So it's a good time for us to refresh, because a lot has evolved over time with regards to council's priorities. But the key reason why now is exactly what I said just previously, which is we want to provide staff and council and the public with a strategy that's easy to reference, it's easy to share, it's easy to refer to and track, and it's easy to measure. So we can actually look back and say, have we been successful in achieving the outcomes that we hope to achieve internally? So next slide. What went into the plan? So to just kind of very quickly walk you through the process of what we did, I'm going to kind of focus on two of these specifically, which one we'll come back to, which is the 2013 strategy, so we'll come back to that briefly. But to kind of go through what we have done that has led to this point, one of the key things which you may or may not remember, I know it was before your time on council, but with a BR&E report that was done, Business Retention and Expansion Report, which was, sorry, I should have put that in the slide, but that's Business Retention and Expansion Report that I believe was completed in 2023. So it provided us with a number of directions about how to support businesses in the area. So we've pulled in a lot of the information from there. We also, as I already mentioned, have a lot of existing plans. Our growth plan, which was approved by council last year, our arts and culture strategy, which I'm going to talk about a little bit more in a bit as well. We have an approved Kaiser Meadow Industrial Park Marketing and Development Plan, and we also have an approved Community Beautification and Revitalization Plan. So those are all elements of the economic development strategy that have been previously approved that we're trying to now compile into a single location. We also already talked about the strategic priorities and how we're trying to align this with that. We've also, through the course of especially our growth plan and some of the land use bylaw reviews that we've done, we've received a lot of input from the business community. So we've tried to incorporate all the different things that we have heard from them as well through those engagement processes, and what's worked, what they can see, that they see as needing improvement, things like that. So we've incorporated that. And the last one on this page, which I want to spend just a little bit more time on, because we had a lot more information here that we could have shared, but it wasn't easily shareable in a presentation form, which has to do with best practices. So another thing that we did around here is we looked at every economic development organization in the province of Nova Scotia and what they are providing to their municipalities or to a wider region, and we tried to go through everything that is being done and how we compare to them, or how we maybe could offer some additional services, or what we're already offering. Not to tap our staff internally on the back too much, but in doing this, we noticed that with our resources that we have internally, we're doing we have a very comprehensive economic development plan in place in our area. So in other areas that have larger rents, that have overhead and different things like that, they essentially are doing a lot of the same things that we do. We just do it on a tighter budget with we make better, in our opinion, better use of the resources. So we haven't included all of this detail in the presentation or in the plan, but at any point in time, if anybody wants to see that full review of the best practices that we have done, I can share it with anybody. Just, I hope you like spreadsheets. That's the way I'll say it. So if you want to look at that. So to come back to the 2013 strategy, because I know I've heard some comments about this previously, and we've had these conversations around, so what's taken so long for us to get here? And that is a little hard to see on the screen. Apologies, hopefully it's easier on your screens. But essentially what we wanted to do is provide just I'm not gonna read through each of these individually, but one of the key things is that plan has been, I'm saying this incorrectly. We have been working on that plan since 2013. So there's a lot of different things that have been accomplished. So what we did as we were looking at is we looked at what was in the plan, what have we done, what needs to be carried forward because it's an ongoing action that we do, and what is no longer we would call relevant is essentially what we did. So this is just a list of just a few of the things from the 2013 plan that have been completed. So you can see that hopefully some of these will make sense to you. So the launching of Invest Chester is one of those examples that was recommended in the 2013 report that has been completed and is online, and now we are trying to improve it even more. So this is just a review of what was in the 2013 strategy and what we've accomplished. Okay. So with that kind of background of how we got to here, I wanted to provide a little more background on now the steps that we took to create this new plan. So this background in the next two slides, so we'll start here though, most of this has come from our growth strategy. So we did a lot of work last year on the growth strategy and looking at our demographics, looking at our population, looking at our population growth expectations over the next few years, et cetera, et cetera. And so that has formed kind of the basis of this plan from a demographic standpoint. So some of the key things that I wanted to focus on here is the fact that two things that probably, again, like I said, no surprises, we know is our population has been growing over the last number of years, and we anticipate that it will continue to grow, if slower than in the past 5 years, but we still are anticipating growth from various sources, especially due to infrastructure improvements such as the twinning of the 103. But combined with that population growth as it's coming in, we do have an aging population. So we are seeing more outmigration by younger people, replaced with retirement age people, which is putting pressures on our workforce. That's due to a number of issues, including the lack of attainable housing, but we are seeing the percentage of working age people in the municipality continue to shrink. So we want to do things that will encourage a younger population to move into the area to be able to support our aging population as well, because as our population ages, services are needed to be supplied as well, which requires a younger age workforce. So it's kind of this cycle. Those are two of the main things that we're looking at from a demographics perspective. On the next slide, we also took a look in the growth plan as two different things, where people work and what people do. And I know that these sound very similar, but essentially what we're trying to look at is the types of places that people go to work on a daily basis, and then what their job is when they get there. So this is, there's more details in the growth plan, obviously, but this just kind of highlights the top three in each location. So where people work, healthcare, construction, manufacturing, and what people do. We have a lot of sales and service. That's from the retail facilities in the area, and trades, and business, finance, and administration. So those are kind of where people work and what they do in those locations. We also have, from past work that has been done with the BRE, which is Business Retention and Expansion Report, we identified 5 key sectors, and there's also, I've put a little plus here, because we have 5 key sectors that have been outlined that we have been putting special attention on. Those are arts, culture, and recreation. I'm still delaying talking about that a little bit more, but that's number 1, business and professional services, construction and skilled trade, green industry and environmental services, niche and value-added manufacturing. And then the little plus that we're putting here as well is, even though we have not identified it as a key sector, we obviously put a lot of priority on our tourism-related businesses in the area as well. So we have done a lot of work to try to support our tourism businesses. We have Tourism Chester, so we definitely put a focus on tourism-related businesses as well. So that all brings us to the vision for economic development in the municipality. And again, this is not new. This is from the strategic plan. So this was pulled directly from the strategic plan in that section about making the municipality of Chester a place that is attractive for people to visit, live, and invest, and how we are going to target those growth areas that can support development. So that's where we get to the vision statement. So we also have put together, and this is where we're starting to look for some input around the table. So after I get through the next two slides, I'm going to stop and see if anybody has any comments. But if you want to go to the next slide, Emily. We looked at our strengths and opportunities in the area. And I will go through these because what I'm hoping people can do is let me know, do these sound right? What's missing as we're going through this? So essentially, as a municipality, we are very conveniently located and we're well connected. We have, as we just referenced with those key sectors, we have strong and developing key industry sectors. We have access to talent and highly skilled workers. We're surrounded by a number of universities within 40 minutes in one way, Wolfville and Kentville in the other direction with the NSCC in Acadia, as well as the NSCC in Bridgewater as well. So we're surrounded by talent. We have good access to that talent and highly skilled workers in the area. We just need to get them into our municipality. We have demonstrated investment in infrastructure, which is needed to support the work. So all the work that we're doing with wastewater, we have, I think, an announcement coming later today. We have available land for development at the Kaiser Meadow Industrial Park and other areas in the municipality, even if it's not owned by the municipality itself, but we do have plenty of available land for development. We have strong tourism, arts, culture, and heritage assets. As we mentioned, Invest Chester and Tourism Chester are both websites that are targeted towards specific sectors and encouraging investment in the area. Our zoning is very flexible and accommodating. We hear that all the time. The twinning of Highway 103 is another thing that's going to bring more people into the area. We do have low tax rates and a very attractive quality of life in the area, and we are well connected as a destination. And we have a growing population and are planning for new growth nodes, and that work is already underway. So work such as the comprehensive community plan in the Hubbards area and the plan that we have to extend that beyond that. So we have that planning underway from a strengths and opportunity standpoint. On the weaknesses and threats side of things, and we get this from a number of different areas and what we hear from other people, so the economic development resources within Lunenburg County, we have heard, are not well connected and can sometimes operate in silos, so people aren't necessarily entirely sure where they should go for information or resources to support their businesses. We have minimal statistics that from the federal level because they've reduced their rural statistic collection, so we don't necessarily have access to as good statistics as an urban area would have around how our growth is going and how businesses are developing regionally. We could improve our work on creating a one-stop shop for business resources locally. We do hear that it would be great for people to know exactly the path they can go for additional resources within the municipality. Kaiser Meadow industrial lands are, like we said, they're available, but they're not necessarily well located. So that's something that we've been hearing a lot lately as well. We have a significant number of people that commute to other municipalities from the municipality of Chester, so there is the threat of becoming a bedroom community that services other business areas, so that's a threat that we need to take seriously. We are close to major hubs, and that is a potential threat both from a commuting issue, which I just mentioned, but also it means from a tourism perspective, people can visit our area and go stay somewhere else, as opposed to staying here and keeping more of their tourism dollars in the area. We already mentioned the aging workforce, the availability of attainable housing, some new ones on the horizon with regards to the threat of tariffs and economic instability currently. And the other one that we know and have heard a lot as of the last 2 years especially is the lack of a central water supply impacts the scale of development that is possible within the municipality, and that has caused some concerns around development in the area. So, as I said, I was going to stop after those and just ask, so when you hear those from an opportunities and a weakness standpoint, does it sound like it's covered? What's missing? Is there anything that you hear that surprises you, anything that you think is missing that we should be considering when it comes to the economic development environment within the municipality?
Councillor Asif.
That's okay, thank you. I just, Brian, I see these statistics are from 2021, 22?
A lot of them are, yes.
So how, you know, you got boots on the ground, so how, are they pretty accurate, do you think, still?
So the answer to that is, I would say yes. The population statistics, we have updated based on what the estimates are. So in the actual statistics for population from 2021, we're somewhere around 10,700. We've updated that to 11,600 based on what we know from population estimates. So anything that we believe is inaccurate, we have updated, but everything is pretty much accurate compared to what 2021 was, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
If I'm not hearing anything, I will continue on. I just wanted to provide an opportunity for input. Okay, so moving on to the plan itself, what we've done is we've taken all the actions and objectives that we have over the next 4 years, and that I should have mentioned that. Our intention with this is for it to be a 4-year plan. We want to reduce the period of time between refreshing the plan itself. And we want to, and I know this is going to sound a little funny because you're a year into the current term, but we want to kind of tie it to the council term. And this is for discussion, but the thinking of 4 years is the first year sometimes people are getting their feet wet around what their priorities might be for the next few years. So having a plan that carries over a little bit past the end of the previous term would be a good period of time to kind of reflect and see how things are working, and then come in a year later with suggestions if you have any changes that you want to happen. So we're proposing this as a 4-year plan that would start now and go to a year into the new council term. Obviously, that can be switched, but that's what we are proposing this as right now. So the strategic objectives that we are looking at over the next 4 years, we have grouped into these 6 kind of main themes, which I'm going to go through each of these themes individually. But the first one essentially is readiness and attraction. So how we work with businesses to make sure that they're ready for outside investment. The second one would be business support, so how we support businesses in the area. The third has to do with growth and planning for growth in the municipality. The fourth is specific to workforce development and how we can play a role in working with that. The fifth, it has to do with places that attract people. So going back to our vision about wanting to be a place that attracts people to visit, invest, and live, that's where we go there. And the sixth one has to do with partnerships and how we work with other organizations that have a role to play in economic development. So we'll go through each of these kind of individually. And what I wanted to say here is what I'm going to be doing today, like I said, is a high level. I'm just focusing on the overall objectives that we're trying to accomplish. So the plan that you will receive for approval will go further into actions and the things that we want to do to actually accomplish these goals. And those are the things that we anticipate implementing to accomplish these. But these are all going to be, and this is where I want to be clear, they're going to be sample actions. They're not things that you have to say, yes, I agree to this, yes, I agree, yeah, because every year we come forward with a plan for people to approve around our budget time and what we're going to be doing. These are samples that absolutely will change over the course of 4 years. But the idea is they all are intended to accomplish these 6 main themes. So everything that we're doing would focus on these 6 main objectives. The actions themselves could and will change over time as council's priorities evolve, shift, but overall we want council to approve and give us a direction on these 6 things as being important as what we're doing with regards to economic development. So the first being readiness and attraction. So there are 4 little buckets here that you'll see. I'll go through each of them incredibly briefly, but the first being strengthening our communities for investment and attraction. So that's how we work to essentially create an environment that encourages outside money to come into the area. So how we can attract outside investment, how we can attract outside businesses to come operate here, how we can get businesses that are here more ready for outside investment so that they can be ready to tap into those larger markets. So that's the first one. The second one has to do with defining and refining our competitive advantage. So this is all about promotion, how we promote the area as being ready for attraction and ready for investment. Sorry, I meant to say investment. Ready for investment in the area. So that's the second big objective here. The Third one being identifying and supporting key sector development, and that's all about the data. So how we collect data on what's needed in the area and how we can be better ready to both promote ourselves and receive investment from outside the area into our key sectors in the region. And the final kind of bucket here is continuous learning and improvement. And that's how we can adapt to the changing global environment, how the investment world is switching, how we can access outside training for businesses that are looking to expand or grow. So it's that continuous learning and how we improve our local environment to be ready for that investment from outside the area. Moving to the second main pillar here that we're looking at is our business growth and support. And so if the first plan was about how we attract new money into the area, this one is about how we really support the businesses that are here. So this business growth and support, it's all about supporting existing businesses, how we do things like shop local, different plans that we do to try to really support those existing businesses, how we can provide access to resources. Business retention and expansion really pulls from that BR&E plan that we have that really helps people look at how they might expand in the area, how they might be able to retain the business that they have, how we can really keep them here and keep them strong. The third one, which I'm finally going to talk about, the arts and culture, is how we support our arts and culture community and the sector of our arts and culture strategy, essentially. So we have, as everybody I believe knows, an arts and culture strategy that was approved in the last year. You're going to be getting an update, I believe, on next council on how that work is going. So we'll be giving an update on the short-term plans around there, but this really is capturing everything that we have already approved in the arts and culture development strategy there. Also in this area is how we measure and show the value of our increased tourism visitation in the area. So this is how we can really track how we're making the place more attractive to visitors in the area and the work that we're doing to support our tourism related businesses. And the final kind of main objective in this area, which council has already approved some of the actions that we've taken around this, and we've been doing this with regional partners, but really about how we spur in entrepreneurship in the area. So how we've talked about attracting new investment to the area, we've talked about supporting businesses that are already here, but this is part of that is also how we help people start new businesses and how we can support that entrepreneurial spirit and ensuring that those new businesses have a place to grow and thrive. So that's that bucket in here. So moving on to the next one. I'm not going to spend very much time on this because this is quite literally the growth plan inserted into the economic development strategy. So everything that has been approved in the growth plan would automatically just feed into this section of the economic development strategy. It goes around how we plan for growth, how we support housing options, how we work with communities to ensure that they're efficient in their development of infrastructure and amenities. Everything around that area is located in this section. So I'll just skip over that one quickly. The fourth major theme that we've been working on is workforce attraction and workforce attraction and retention really, but we're just really referring to it as workforce. And what I wanted to do is make a note in this section, which is that this involves a lot of work with partners. So in this one, another thing that we looked at is what our role is as a municipality, because there are things that we want to do to support economic development in many areas, but there are other organizations that do a lot of work, and we just need to tap into the resources that they already have available. So this section is especially leaning into that because of the fact that there are a lot of different partners out there that provide training resources, that provide different work around how we can retain and develop the skills of a workforce locally. But in general, these break down into 4 different buckets. Number one, and this one really is in our field, but resident attraction. So part of our growth plan talked about putting a resident attraction marketing plan in place so that we can actually attract people at that workforce age level so that we can bring them into the area and attract them to want to come live and work in the municipality. So that's one of the things that we'll be working on. Skills and training, how we can work with the business community to provide access to the skills and training that already exists. So that's where we will definitely be working with a lot of partners. Same with the youth employment opportunities. We really want to work hard with the schools and the partners that work with schools to encourage our youth to stay in the area and to take up careers that allow them to stay in the area, so we can keep more of that age group in the region. And the final one, again with partners, is around succession planning. So as older business owners are aging out of their businesses and want to retire, how can we help ensure that that business remains viable and working in the community and providing employment well into the future through succession planning? The fifth theme is, again, no surprises here, but a lot of it is around places to live and work is how we've phrased this one. A lot of the elements here come from the approved community beautification and revitalization plan. So how do we create communities that are attractive to people? How do we work on community beautification? How do we look at thriving public spaces and ensuring that those are spread throughout the municipality and help attract people? A lot of that work is underway in your communities already, and we'll have an update on that, I think, next week as well. The arts and culture is also mentioned here. This is not so much, even though it's a part of the arts and culture plan, this is more around public art, like how we can, and that's one component of the arts and culture strategy, how we can encourage more public art in our spaces throughout the municipality. And also from our growth plan is the traffic calming and active transportation work that we're hoping to do, which is really around creating transportation options in the area and walkability in our core communities. So. And the final main theme of work that we are anticipating doing over the next 4 years is around engagement and partnership. And this goes back to the fact that we need to work with a lot of partners to make this happen, and we can do a better job of coordinating these things. So it's around creating that network of available partners that we can tie into to accomplish our goals as a municipality. So we don't have to recreate other roles that people have, but we can take advantage of those and do so better, where we can be the one-stop shop for people, but then we can feed people into the appropriate places for the business resources that they are looking for. And with that, I will say we're open to any questions, direction, any comments that we might have. If you're feeling good about it, if you think that there are things missing, open to any comments and questions. And hopefully you like the brand.
Councilor Asif.
Thank you. Great report. I mean, to me, everything hinges, economic development, everything hinges on housing. And I know that's part of it's really not economic development, but it is. If you don't have housing, it's like building a house without a foundation. If you don't have housing, you will not attract people, you will not attract businesses. I got an area I got Oak Island in my area, they can't find people because they got no place to live. And it all comes down to that. Now, until we address that problem, I don't know how we're gonna address it as a municipality, but I think it ties into economic development, more so even than retaining it. You can't retain it if you don't have it. So, I don't know how we work in that, I really don't. But housing is just the hugest issue, not just here. And unless you solve that problem, I mean, we have a deputy warden here that's trying to, he's building development, but again, that's a small drop in the bucket. I mean, I don't know if there's any plan for public housing here, if anybody hears anything about that. I mean, I know they're planning to do some stuff in Kentville, but I think we're just gonna be behind the eight ball all the time here, unless we have housing.
Okay, Aaron. I get to speak. Trying to find your icon here. There it is.
Brian could probably jump in, but our approach to addressing the housing shortage and affordability issue is through the growth plan and the Housing Accelerator Fund that we received as well from the federal government. So there were 9 initiatives outlined there that are focused on our role as municipal government, which is a lot to do with putting that infrastructure where it needs to go. So identifying the areas that we're going to focus servicing, and that should in turn attract investment from the housing industry. Because that really is at the municipal level, the local level, that's one of our core services, right, is that water, wastewater piece. And also reducing the red tape, so trying to be more efficient on permitting, so the e-permitting initiatives that we're working on as well. So those 9 initiatives really are to help the housing affordability and availability in our municipality.
Yeah, and if you don't mind, Chair, I skipped over that part, which is my apologies in advance, but on the growth section, when I went through that I said I will skip this section. Yeah, our entire growth plan has a section around missing middle housing, how we support that. There's also a lot about infrastructure work that we can do that would help spur, and so to Deputy CAO's point, that's what we're trying to do, is really implement that growth plan, which I skimmed through incredibly quickly, so my apologies.
Councillor Bremner?
Thank you, Deputy Warden Vito. This year's being chirped into, wow, this year's being chirped into, we don't want certain things from our usual concerns, and I'm going to go dangerous here in a way. We have a wonderful municipality that has so much potential, yet we have hamlets that want to be protected so restrictively and want to keep it certain areas and certain things. Traveling around, the most popular thing I hear, we'd love to come to the municipality, but where does my family of 5 stay? Now, at one point, we had 200 rooms available a night in Chester alone, in District 3. Yes, we still have rooms available, but many have some conditions, others aren't affordable to some people. We have recreation facilities that are begging to bring opportunities here, the golf courses, the rinks, the yacht club, all of these places. But again, it's about the affordability to have that opportunity for an event that can make or break their season or make and break the growth of our municipality. The infrastructure issues, you know, everybody in Chester wants water, 50% don't want to support it, 50% want it supported, but then it's the cost that is millions and billions and more. We've got to find options and ways to do this. Our municipality has areas that could make such a growth difference. This is exciting material. I just hope we can all work together to find solutions through dialogue that is balanced and not use the negativity approach that we can't, or we shouldn't. We can if we want to make this happen in a balanced, approachable way that's beyond us now. We've had our opportunities as young people to do things and move forward. We have to look at the next generation. You know, when we talk about recreation facilities, a common thing I get, well, what benefit's going to give me? Well, you have to look beyond that. You just can't use that one line and say, I don't want to participate, I don't want to. You're here today, you have an ability to support for the future. If somebody didn't support us as individuals and as communities, we wouldn't be here. So we have to look at this in a refreshing way, and I like what I'm hearing. I really do. I think this has so much when you go from point A to point B in our municipality, but much bigger than that. We're part of a beautiful province that I hear everywhere I go, wow, that's a great part of the world. So let's make this happen in a way that we can work with it. Thank you.
Councillor Webb?
Yes,
Or, sorry,
I was
Warden
just
Webb.
going to speak to the issue of housing, and I mean, again, I think we all know it. I mean, housing is an issue, I hear it all the time, whether it's short-term, whether it's long-term, whatever, you know. But I think our investment in the infrastructure that's required to make it more feasible is the main thing we can do, and it is what we're doing. And, you know, I'm sure everybody's aware that there's an announcement coming up this morning about funding for infrastructure, which will help support housing. And, you know, like, I know for a fact that there are at least 3 or 4 developers who I've been in contact with for the last couple of years who are just waiting for it to be built, who are going to build a variety of different types of housing as well as commercial expansion. So that's our role, and that's what we're doing. And we're investing a fair bit in it. Yeah.
Well, I have a few comments. Government policy, I think, is a lot like the fashion world. Because, you know, that fuchsia sweater that you see on the rack in Walmart was probably on the runway in Milan 5 years ago. And by the time we see it in Walmart, fashion's already moved on. And where I'm going with this is, you know, 5 years ago, we were completely constrained. There was no housing available anywhere. Growth was out of control. And, government has a lot of inertia. And by the time we make priorities of housing and things like that, sometimes the problem has changed somewhat. Vacancy rates in Nova Scotia have climbed from 1.1 to 2.1% in the last year. There's a trend that we are seeing more vacancy, actually, in housing. So saying specifically that we need more housing is not actually, maybe, I'm suggesting, maybe good policy. Because we do in fact need more housing, but the problem is affordability. People can't afford the housing that's being made and built, and because the cost of construction is very high, it's hard to build new housing and have it affordable for those that are seeking it out. So the problem that government has been trying to address 5 years ago has changed into a new problem. There was a lot of money around 5 years ago. It seemed like, housing, the house that would have cost you 8 years ago, $200,000 to buy cost $400,000 to buy, and there was a lineup of people willing to pay that. That's changed. We don't have those lineups like we had before, because the problem has now morphed from housing to affordability. And I think we need, as government and our provincial and federal government need to actually open their eyes and think a little more deeply on defining the problem, because just simply saying housing, housing, housing isn't actually a very good solution, in my view. I'm just a lowly counselor here. But there are things that we can do, and we have been doing, and I'm really proud of our work and we've been galvanized for many years now to make available infrastructure that will promote more efficient construction of housing and other things as well. But there's culturally here in this municipality, I think that Councillor Bremner mentioned it, there's a lot of inertia also to things changing. But, it's hard to spur on prosperity without investment. We have a land use change, or a zoning change that's being proposed, and we're going to hear from the public in Hubbard's. And the proposal is to bring a new retail gas station thing like that. It's a little bit too big for what we have in our zone, and I think we've heard from as many people against it as for it. And that cultural barrier that we have here, specifically in this municipality, I think is one that will continue to be an anchor to us as we try to bring prosperity here. We know that there's an echelon of our residents that, they don't need to worry about housing, and they don't need to worry about, whatever resources that you would need if you were just maybe a new person or a new couple just trying to get your foothold in the world. But those investments, we have to be, just like we were with sewer and water, we have to be willing to take chances on investments in our community that we may not have been willing to do maybe in years past, because those investments are what, maybe, I'm not saying we will or won't be in favor of that, but that may trigger another investment, because the more amenities bring more people, and then it's like, okay, well, now they want whatever, a grocery store or whatever the next thing is, but it has to start with some investment. And when it comes to land use, that is well within our wheelhouse. The problem with economic development, and you've been confronted with this, I'm sure, many times, Brian, is that it's really difficult to make measurable indicators for your work. And even if you did, it takes so long to actually measure them that it's hard to know what you're doing is actually impacting things. But when we allow investment to happen, that's really quick and obvious. The trouble is, politically, it's difficult. Every time we build a sidewalk, every time we put a sewer in, there's as many people in this municipality here that are opposed to it as there are for it. And, doing nothing is it's politically always the easiest and safest route. So I think our council, if we're really interested in economic development, we have to be bold enough to take those beatings by those that are more happy with the status quo than are interested in growth. And there is a big segment of our population that are very happy with the status quo. And because they don't need to worry about maybe economics because they've already had successes in that area. But those that want to rise up and change their economic status, they need us to be bold and make the decisions that we can take those decisions. And I think when we evaluate proposals, be it a new sewer extension or a land use change or whatever, we have to have this economic strategy in our mind. How will this benefit the strategy? So those are my comments, and I know there's a lot of verbiage there. I was kind of really went off, but any further comments?
You inspired me to go to Walmart and buy a sweater.
Buy local if you can, yeah.
Oh, Councillor Cooley.
I just wanted to, let's see, how do I start this? Water sewage first, infrastructure second, then it creates a density within a living environment, right? We have no places to stay, there's not affordable housing, every community struggles with the exact same issues. They're not gonna come and live if there's nowhere to live, however, water and sewage first, infrastructure second, that's the draw, and then, of course, and then people would come and stay. Because density is a problem within these small little pocket communities. Nobody wants to increase, they want to keep the little hamlet, they want to keep their identity. They want to keep their identity, and that's the struggle, and that's the argument that's always put forth anytime there's an opportunity for a new development or a thought of a new development. So I know Councilor Bremen used the word, but it's such a balancing act. How do we please everybody at the same time? It's
Yeah.
just, I mean, density is the biggest issue. No water, no sewage, no infrastructure, no one will come. And people want to live where they work. People would love to be able to live where they work. Nobody wants to have to commute 45 minutes. Nobody wants to pay overpriced rental because that's as close as a 45-minute commute on the highway. I mean, everybody would love to be able to live where they work. And it's going to be the same problem. Every community struggles with the exact same ideals, right? So, thank you.
All right, just to summarize and wrap up, based on conversation and discussion around the table, we intend to bring back the economic development strategy for approval probably in April at some point. We don't have it on the calendar yet, but that's my guess. All right, thank you.
Would anybody mind just taking 5 minutes just so we can hit the washrooms? folks. Welcome back. All right, we're going to be talking about our draft surplus asset disposal policy. Jonathan, take it away.
Okay, so the purpose of this is, so if you're gonna, are you advancing the slide? Yes. Okay, could you go to the next slide, please? So the purpose of this is to revisit the scope of the draft surplus asset policy, disposal policy, which was presented in November. And I think what happened was earlier in 2025, we had brought scope discussion to council and seemed to have the green light on that, and then came back with a policy quite a few months later. So I think in that interim gap, I think council perhaps were a little surprised about a couple of details, or perhaps unclear. So this is an opportunity just to go back, refresh, understand what we're trying to do, and then to sort of touch on, there's two remaining points that we need council's direction on, and that is the approval authority thresholds regarding donations, and also the extent to which sales of surplus assets are prohibited to municipal staff. So there's a couple options there. All right, so next slide, please, Jen. So just what this surplus asset disposal, proposed surplus asset disposal policy is doing is certainly aligned with a whole bunch of other frameworks, not least of which is the Municipal Development Act. So there is a section in the MGA that stipulates, subject to policies adopted by council, the CAO may sell personal property belonging to the municipality that, in the opinion of the CAO, is obsolete, unsuitable for use, surplus the requirements of, or no longer needed by the municipality, and may delegate this authority to employees of the municipality. But just draw attention to that because it is an administrative function. And as such, skipping to the next slide, Jen, it aligns with what we're doing in terms of developing an asset management system. So it aligns with the asset management policy and the direction therein, but it's also in terms of asset management processes. A true effective asset management system addresses the whole life cycle of an asset from acquisition to disposal. And what the situation we're in now with in terms of movable assets is that we're not dealing with that sort of final part. So we have surplus items both in terms of fleet, in terms of IT equipment, in terms of office furnishing, that are just sitting around, gathering dust, taking up space. So we need to address that. The other thing that the surplus asset disposal policy does is authorize some administrative functions. So that is designate, oh, am I not on? Oh, sorry, my apologies. So that is, we have, or will have, I should say, an asset management steering committee. This is an administrative committee that's going to have its inaugural meeting in late April. And within that committee are going to be tapped asset leads. Those are staff who have will be sort of charged with providing that sort of overarching view of our planning around our assets, whether that's sort of risk assessment, costing, renewal plans, operating and maintenance budgeting, and so on and so forth. So the asset leads will lead that. They bring those discussions to the overall committee, and then the work of that committee feeds into our asset management plan. So a key part of the planning, as I've said before, is that disposal part of it, of assets as well. So the next two slides are just to touch on how the need to do to take care of disposal of assets is also in alignment with our strategic priorities. So whether it's the managing assets for long-term sustainability, again, as I've said, it's disposal as a key part of that life cycle management. That transparent and accountable decision making. So the other thing that we've struggled with as a municipality in the past is just, so we have IT equipment, how do we fairly and equitably and transparently dispose of that? So what we need is a system in place that provides those guidelines, provides that direction and processes. Similarly, the final piece about maintaining operational efficiency. Again, there's some cost savings to be made in terms of reducing storage space and so on and so forth. So, and even recouping some value from any potential sales. I would also add to that, there's also a sort of social a social value attached to if there are donations made to sort of not-for-profit or charitable organizations that provides a function to our broader community. So that there is certainly social capital for and goodwill that the municipality can extend to the community it serves. Next slide, please, Jen. So, as we mentioned, as exists in the draft, we're using for a definition of surplus assets, as I mentioned, machinery and vehicles, furniture, cell phones, computer equipment. It's movable assets as per the common legal and accounting definition thereof. And then for surplus, it's simply referencing what the Municipal Government Act provides in terms of direction in that respect. So next slide. In terms of disposal methods, the draft policy outlines 6 distinct disposal methods, whether that's department transfer, trade-in, donation, sale, recycling, and scrapping. And in that draft policy, there is an administrative decision tree for that. The intent in terms of process is that the Asset Management Steering Committee will recommend for the CAO's review and sign off a specific disposal method for specific surplus movable assets, along with a rationale and procedural checklist about what steps are required. The intent is to sort of really keep things administratively efficient. So sort of to have a process that becomes just part of our regular operational processes, is that we have items that we no longer need, and then we can dispense of them in an established procedure. So in terms of sales procedures, we would use these sort of standard kind of options available, whether that's invitation to tender on surplus asset, listed for public invitation, or a public invitation, to attend a sale of surplus assets at a price determined by the committee or estimated market value. An administrative procedures document will outline those established processes and process checklists for guidance. And when it comes to a sale that is made, a purchase agreement would be signed by the CAO and the purchaser to waive any liability that relates to those assets sold. So that there's no comeback, we bought this truck from you and it died 10 kilometers down the road. Well, that's on you, so to speak. So in terms of market value, I don't think we need, that, as I said, will be determined by the committee or simply by highest bid, basically. So I don't think there's a need to overthink that in terms of value. In some respects, the market will tell us. When it comes to donation, then we may need to do a little bit more research around that, just to come up with a fair market value for that. But even then, we're not necessarily beholden to that process. So in terms of donation procedures, it would begin with the application, a donation application, which would be completed by the registered not-for-profit or charitable organization. And instead of competition or tender, donation procedures require the application to be fulfilled, and there would be a number of questions that would be asked of the potential donee. So the recipient's reason for making the request, whether the recipient has pursued other options, how the recipient proposes to manage the donated item, if the recipient is located with the municipality, and if the proposed use of the donated item is likely to benefit residents of the municipality. This is just to give us a sort of benchmark of good sort of social value attached to if we're going to go into and donate an item. So again, similar to the purchase agreement, a donation agreement would be signed by the CAO and the purchaser to waive any liability for that asset sold. So, next slide. Thank you, Jen. So the remaining items for discussion then, and by all means, of course, if there's anything that's been brought up, by all means flag that for further comment or question. But the two that came out of the presentation of the draft policy back in November is to what extent should the surplus asset disposal policy prohibit the sale of surplus assets to municipal employees? And then council also flagged that approval authority's threshold for donation value. So I guess the question then is, what approval thresholds should we consider for donation? So in terms of prohibition of sales, you're familiar with the code of conduct for elected officials, so that does not permit the sale of surplus assets to members of council, so that's clear and above board. And in that respect, then the proposed surplus assets disposal policy aligns with that code of conduct for elected officials and does not permit sales to council members. In respect to, next slide, Jen, in respect to the prohibition of sales to municipal employees, there are basically two options. So one is to simply a blanket prohibition, so to prohibit all municipal employees from participating in the sale of surplus movable assets. This approach is common to municipal approaches in terms of this kind of disposal. And when it comes to any concerns about closely connected, as applies to elected officials, it doesn't necessarily apply in this context because, for one, if all sales are advertised in the same way at the same time, then closely connected persons, such as a family member of a municipal employee, wouldn't have an advantage in terms of making those sales. The other account is that legal advice suggested, pointed out quite rightly, that the policy could not hold closely connected persons accountable should they breach that prohibition. So it's kind of a legless assertion anyway in that respect. So that's one. It's the sort of that blanket prohibition to all municipal employees. The other one is simply to sort of limit it to those, to prohibit sales to municipal employees, and I'm seeing some disagreement already, but I'll just briefly, you could choose to limit it to just municipal employees who are involved in the decision-making and the administrative procedures of those sales. So, I'll leave it at that. So, okay, so then in respect to the sales approval authority, next slide, Jen, oh, sorry, actually scratch that. So let's step back. I guess I'm getting ahead of myself. So at this point then, I'm looking for your direction. Do you want to go with prohibit sales to all municipal employees? Is that what I'm hearing?
Remove the closely connected piece.
We remove the closely connected piece. Is everybody comfortable with that? All right. Thank you very much. I know this is dry stuff. So on to donations approval authority. So just as a matter of context, the sales approval authority is clear cut, and it's basically inversion of the procurement thresholds. This is on advice of our procurement team. It's just that it's the cleanest and the simplest way possible. So the same triggers that approve a staff sign-off or a CAO sign-off for the procurement of goods and services would be the same threshold that would trigger that sign-off for the sales of those goods and services, or in this case, the movable assets. When it comes to donations, the draft policy proposes an approval authority threshold of $10,000, and this, when we reviewed the draft policy, council sort of had concerns about that. So here's an opportunity to discuss this. I will say, in terms of jurisdictional scan, what some municipal units do. They have that threshold of $10,000. Some have it maintain that threshold as below 10,000 would be staff, above it CAO. A couple of others, such as HRM, I think Wolfville. No, I can't remember. Anyway, some others have the threshold as being below 10,000 CAO, and above 10,000 would be council sign off. I will point out that the draft policy does include the provision that a sale or donation shall be forwarded to council for review and approval if the CAO deems that the matter is best reviewed and approved by council. So if there is something that seems particularly large, then there is a mechanism in place that can bring that to council for review.
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
How would you envision this actually being carried out in the real world? Some asset comes up, I don't know. some computers. We're gonna dispose of them.
Yeah.
Whatever the different organizations out there in the world, they don't know that we have computers coming up for disposal.
That's right.
So then what, are we gonna seek out organizations, say, hey, do you guys want some computers?
Well, we
Like,
would,
like, how does this work?
we'd have to promote, we'd have to do some communications around that. So we'd have to have enough lead time to sort of, this would be part of the sort of procedures that we need to sort of flesh out. We have draft procedures for this, but we need to sort of refine that further. So certainly I think when it comes to, I mean, the sales of assets is one thing, that we would make access, you know, make the public tenders role or whatever it might be. So that's clear. But when it comes to donations, it would have to be us communicating with our residents, our community more broadly, whether it's through website, our email notifications, our municipal newsletter, whatever it might be. So it would be that, it would require us to do proactive communications to the broader community.
Yeah, I mean, I for one, this hopefully spur on some interesting debate, but I don't even know why we have this. You know, to me, it would be just sale or landfill. Like, I don't know why we have this whole policy around donations and us trying to engage with these folks to see if they want sold stuff. I just don't know. You know, if we put up on our, let's say we have a part on our website that's like asset disposal, and we were contacted by a group saying, you know, you see you're selling off a bunch of filing cabinets, we could use those filing cabinets. I could see the CAO coming to council and saying, we had this request from such and such a group. Is it like by council, like authority, saying, okay, then we can take that out and donate. But I just don't know why values under 10,000, we just arbitrarily find groups, and which groups do we find? And I can see opportunity for favoritism there amongst groups, you know. They have a great relationship with municipal staff, so then they have the inside track on assets, and I just don't like it. To me, it would be cleaner if we just didn't even have it personally.
Well,
That's just my-
I think the onus would be on us to ensure that we have an objective process.
No doubt.
So that would be the key, to address your concerns in that
Well,
respect.
I think it's just a waste of
Sure.
word.
Okay. Well, it's an option. That's what other municipal units do. We can
You know,
choose not
I'm usually
to.
on the getting canceled side of the arguments for some reason, but,
Right.
Can I jump in?
oh, by all means.
Yeah, so I would just say that wherever we land with
Yeah.
it, that we have done donations in the past, and so we need some sort of policy that states how and when those donations would be handled or triggered. So if it's not an automatic, when we identify something that may have value to a community group, and staff doesn't do that, then if our policy is everything goes to sale, and we consider donations upon request and council approves those donations, we just want direction in terms of what the policy should say, just so that we're not in a situation where somebody comes and requests or council asks about surplus asset and says, instead of selling this, let's put it up for donation. A good example was with the Hahn property. We allowed for some donations there. We just want to be able to have something that says, yes, we're authorized to do this by policy, so we just are looking for some sort of language in the policy that makes it clear.
Yeah,
in that process.
and it's difficult to say just how extensive, you know, the opportunities there would be for donations. I mean, the Asset Management Steering Committee may steer everything towards sales, or even, I mean, when we're talking about fleet, I mean, as Tammy can attest, like the boneyard at Kaiser Meadow, I mean, a lot of the vehicles that there are just, there's no value there really. So most of them could well be just sort of sold for scrap, right? So or even, you know, dispense with through that scrapping process. So it's the overarching, and I appreciate your concern, Councillor Vino, or Deputy Warden Vino, my apologies. I appreciate your concern in respect to getting caught up in you know, a donations avenue, getting caught up in some kind of perceptions of that kind of stuff. So as I said, it's either it's the clean process that the CEO just outlined, or it's just sort of recognizing that it's there as an option should we need it. Should there be an opportunity to explore that?
I just think that the public can petition council for anything, almost anything at any time. And should we just, either we're gonna repurpose it within our own organization, and when we're done with it, we dispose of it, if it has any value, through a procurement website, and somebody sees it and say, we maintain a little park, we're the garden club, and we maintain a park, and you're getting rid of an old lawnmower, would you consider giving it to us? Why can't that just come to council and we just say, we got this request, it's on the asset disposal list, but the garden club asked us for it? And council would likely say, yeah, fine.
Would
or
you
whatever.
need that? I mean, I'm just, again, thinking of administrative efficiency, would you need that kind of scenario coming to council for approval, or would it be sufficient for
All
CO
right,
to
well,
sign
that's
up?
fine too.
Yeah.
To me, I wouldn't create this whole preemptive, donation idea where you actually identify assets and then say, okay, now we are gonna look for somebody who might wanna take it. Rather, I would have it a pull through rather than a push.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
So, if we put something up for sale and they identify it as a not-for-profit and they make a request, that's one thing, but I don't think that we should be thinking of things and trying to anticipate, and then that's what this policy, as you have described it, it does. It looks for, that's a waste of resources. We're not in the business of finding resources for these not-for-profits. They're in business for doing that.
Yeah,
Should they
no.
identify things that we're putting up that are of use, then they can approach us.
Yeah. No, and I think just to be clear, the steering committee wouldn't be actively I think, targeting any kind of organization for donation or whatever. It's about what is the most viable and efficient way to dispense of assets that are just taking up space. And
Put it up.
yeah, and that may well be the case.
I
just
Warden
wanna-
Weber wants to jump in, so.
Sure.
Yeah, I agree. I just think we should put it all up for sale in the process that you've outlined.
Sure.
And if somebody from the public knows it's out there and they wanna, ask us for a donation, some nonprofit, then the staff can let council know that somebody's asked us to give it to them.
Yeah.
And leave it at that.
CAO McGuire.
Yeah, I just want clarification from council in terms of the process and whether, so it sounds like everything goes for sale. If a request comes to us, I've heard two things. I've heard, one, council considers that request, and two, is there a need for council to consider that request? So is there a threshold of which, and if council doesn't, that's great. That will simplify the process. But is there a threshold, or is it discretion
I
of the
think that there
CAO?
should be actually an upper threshold. I think
Yeah.
it should be lower. What I would hate to see is, so there could be abuse if we don't structure this properly. Let's say that a not-for-profit identifies that we're disposing of, whatever, an old pickup truck. And they say, okay, yeah, we're interested in that, and then the CAO, because it's under, say it's has a value of, whatever, say it's $9,000. They obtain it, and then they just resell it.
Yeah, or some
Yeah, so I think that, so to me, if we're gonna be just giving it away, then it should have a low value threshold. We don't wanna be in the business of just furnishing them with items that they can then resell for profit and use that as a fundraising opportunity. So that could very well happen in this policy, and we have no safeguards.
I would say that's unlikely, but I do
I don't
see
really
your
care
point.
if it's unlikely, it's possible.
It is possible,
Okay,
but,
then we won't do that.
all right, fair enough.
So is there a threshold?
So I think you have to have,
Yeah, what's your threshold
I think
then?
it should be a low threshold, like $4,000 or $5,000.
And let's be clear too, it's highly unlikely that you're gonna have anything of value approaching $10,000.
Well, then great, then
Yeah.
it shouldn't be an issue if we lower it. And then if it's something greater than that somebody approaches us for, then they can come to council for approval.
I think that sounds like a great, if we say $5,000
You good
is
with
the
that?
threshold for CAO approval, and anything above that would be consideration to council.
I'm hearing 5,000, I'm hearing 5,000?
But again, I don't want to have a driven process where we're identifying items that go out for
Yeah.
No, it's.
a giveaway. It's a pull through so that
I
they
like that.
identify something.
No, I like that, Deputy Warden, yeah, I do like that, that's a good approach. Okay.
Councillor Connors, you wanted to speak?
Thank you, yes. Remind me again how we're getting the word out, the the communication to make sure that everybody's aware that, again, it could be a bidding process
Yeah.
for sale, but that window too of a nonprofit putting forward a suggested donation. So how are we making sure that everybody is on the same playing field in terms of awareness? I forget what you
Yeah,
said.
I think whatever option we go, whether it's through public tender or sale process or whatever system we adopt, and whether it's like one of the official bids and tenders or, you know, that way, or whether it's, as I say, public auction, I think the key is ensuring that there's lead time.
Yeah.
And ensuring that we do adequate communications around that to
Thank you.
promote that. I think that'd be key.
Perfect, thank
Then,
you.
then we're ensuring that it's fair access to everyone. Is that fair? Is that good? Okay.
Love it.
Okay, perfect. Good, all right, good.
We're wrapped up?
So, next step then will be, I will bring a revised policy, following this direction, for your review and approval. All right, thank you.
Well, committee, I believe that's the end of the agenda. All right, moved. Seconded, I guess that's our practice.
Everybody.